Fin, it's kind of a pain in the ass.
Once I stood at the foot of a great high mountain that I wanted so much to climb. And on top of this mountain was a beautiful fountain, and beside it the tree of life. I fell down on my knees at the foot of this mountain, cried out, Odin, what must I do? I want to climb up and see, want to learn from this tree that grows so clear in my view. Then I heard a great voice from the top of this mountain saying, child, these are my rules. Just start with Fehu and climb on upward between the etheric and rude. Started climbing upwards, taking Odin's advice, and the higher I got, the harder I climbed. I'm still climbing upwards, and the journey never ends. But through symbiosis, I farm and live free, climbing higher each day by the alchemist way. So friend, if you're willing, climb this mountain with me. Oh, the cuckoo, she's a pretty bird. She warbles as she flies. She never hollers cuckoo till the 4th day, July. Gonna build me a log cabin on a mountain so high, so I can see Willie as he goes on by. I play cards in England, and I play cards in spade. I'll bet you $10 I'll beat you this game. My wagon, well greased, and my whip's in my hand. Step aside, little woman, my horses won't stand. Jack and Jack and Diamond, I've known you from old. You robbed my poor pockets of my silver and my gold. Oh, the cuckoo, she's a pretty bird. She warbles as she flies. She'll cause you no trouble, and she'll tell you no lies.
Hell, welcome to
Hail,
Odin's
hail.
Alchemy.
Welcome.
Before we
How are you today?
fantastic. How you doing, brother?
Awesome. I always love that intro, that 8-minute bluegrass Freddie Badger. Geez, sorry. Brain fart always happens as soon as I go live. Can never
You
remember
betcha.
anything. Maybe it has to do with that THC short-term memory loss that potheads get, but what can I say? Better in the morning. Second stream of the day. Here we are. And you have been busy on the farm, having to now rebuild a cattle corral and a new calf.
Yeah, I had to turn my garage into a cow corral because we had one of my cows ran away, and we had noticed she was looking like she was going to throw a baby one of these days, and she was going to calf, and she disappeared. And thankfully, I just gotten the 4-wheeler fixed, so otherwise I would have been hoofing it all over the mountain. And the cows, you'd be shocked how big a range cows have. You'd be shocked. Like those things got 4-wheel drive. You know, like
Dude.
they go up down cliffs and hills that you can't believe. You're like,
Mountains.
a cow went up that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so she gotten herself up on one of these upper properties, and there was about 4 fallen trees in the road to get her down, and the calf couldn't get by those. One of them was real big. So I busted out the old steel and had to go retrieve them and then turn my garage is a calf barn, and got the cow and the calf over in there, and they're looking real happy. She was this
No
morning.
doubt.
Yeah, I'm super happy. This morning she was in there, and I mean, she was just punching that udder. She was like, I mean, she was getting it. I was like, oh, she good and healthy. And it's a little girl, so we're super happy because we want to add a few more milk cows to the herd.
Right.
We aren't.
So in a garage, that's the safest place that calf's got. All the future generation are going to be jealous of the one that grew up in the garage in the warmth.
The other 3 cows,
then when it comes to milk.
What's that?
I said you're pretty much self-sufficient then when it comes to milk.
Yeah. We have 2. So what I try to do is I'll milk one for like 8 months, and then we try and make it so the other one I can milk the other one for 8 months, and then we're trying to add in a Jersey because I don't like that the way people stretch it out too long. You need to give the cows a break in between and let them get their health built up and whatnot. They're pretty durable creatures, but the same with the chickens. Like in the winter, I don't supplement light in the winter because then they'll stop laying eggs, and I do let that happen because that's what's meant to happen. A chicken has as many eggs as it's going to have ever in its whole life, and so a lot of people will just push them all out and then get rid of the chicken when they quit laying eggs, and I let them do what they're doing naturally. And I do this, and I try and do the same with the cows. I don't try and milk them for too long. Let them go back in and spend a winter rebuilding their system, getting some nice hay, and then in the spring, then go at it again.
Right,
give them time to rest, sort of thing.
Spiritual animal alchemy of understanding and doing good to the animal, and then the animal will produce healthy products for you, as opposed to the toxics. We all heard of the animal when you're in fear or stress, it puts toxins in the blood and makes it less nourishing, more harmful. That
you gotta love them. If you love them, they'll love you back, man.
Exactly.
Animals are great that way. Yeah.
Actually, hold on. I'll pull up. The mom, she even lets me just walk up and take, I carried the calf down and she followed me to the garage.
She trusts you.
My animals don't care about none of that. They're like, we usually take the babies inside and
nice.
Like with we have alpacas and goats, and there's a real problem with selenium deficiency around here. So we'll bring them in, especially in the winter, get them dried off, get them warm, get some selenium in them so they're nice and strong. And then so all my animals are like that. I can just walk up and touch the babies, do whatever I want.
Nice. They trust you.
Yeah.
Is selenium is that like because of the grass, the type of grass you guys get up there? It doesn't give you
just the land. The land up here is selenium deplete for sure.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things. I keep a selenium lick for the adults. It's a real problem with camelids. So your goats and your my alpacas and goats, it's a problem. So I keep a lick that's got selenium in it.
Kind of like a salt
that's
lick.
Available. Yeah.
Salt, another crucial alchemical ingredient and necessity.
Well, and then this is one of your cellular salts, and this selenium is super interesting.
You're not sharing, Ben. If you think, are you talking?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
You know what?
I can't. I gotta open up a different. I gotta open up a different browser
So
and do it, or because if I don't, it does this weird tunnel thing.
Sorry about that.
Gotcha. No worries, Gerald. Yeah, sorry, I didn't know if you knew that you were not sharing a image, as it sounded
Yeah,
like.
no, I'm pulling it up.
were.
I'm pulling it up.
Thank you. Good.
If you've never watched me personally, you're new to it, but all my people, they all know that I'm not computery. It's a horrible process for me. I literally can build my own farm and do the electrical and the plumbing, but as soon as it comes to computery, BurnEye has given me some tutorials. That's part of why I've been better at StreamYard. But
I'm right there with you.
That's what it's all about. Learning together, growing together, and growing food now together, becoming all essentially the goal of transforming everyone in the community to be self-sufficient within a couple of years for every individual, with the different electrocultures, the free energies, and the off-grid healthy grassroots lifestyle, and separating from being and the necessity of that matrix machine cog that we all were before the Great Awakening, aka what they were trying as a reset, but we're growing instead of diminishing.
Going to the store. Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Oh
wow.
Missing last night. For the neighbors, a little baby girl, starting to rain. Good job, sunshine. I got a soil path out.
That was cute.
You bet. So that's my cows will let me touch the babies, and it's because I live in a very symbiotic way. The animals up here, it snowed 2 days ago. Just above me there's snow, but at my house the snow is all gone now. Stop it. The snow finally left at my house. That was absolutely insane.
Right? That's crazy for SoCal in April. Like,
yeah, you were in the footage, 15 feet or some crazy thing like that, or did you get that where you were? Or was that higher up?
That's at my house. I'm at 1350. Is that where we're at, honey? We're just shy of 1400, and because we're so close to the coast, I think the snow line's usually around 2000. And no, that was not the case. Right now, there's still snow, just not even 100 feet above us. Like, basically, when I drive up, I've got to go up this, and I'm the only one that lives down here, and I go up this super steep hill, and then I get to the little main dirt roadish thing, whatever. They aren't really roads. And I take this path through the mountain. There's snow up there when I do it. When I go up there, it's just up the road. There's still snow. It's pretty shocking.
Right? Like, you're pretty much that's above you, and below you is the cedar rainforest, right? Like,
no, the redwood forest is right down the valley from us here. We're up toward the top of the valley, but right down the valley from us, that's where we're right at the edge of the redwood forest. It needs to have a lot of fog for redwoods, and we get the fog a good portion of the year, but not the entire year. And you really need a heavy fog belt for redwoods. Redwoods, that's how they can survive being so tall. Their bark is super porous, and they actually eat fog.
Oh, wow. They absorb the moisture through the air. That's cool.
Yep, and minerals.
Wow. I never knew that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting when you feel them.
Work for them, though. The
What's
snow and
that?
freezing doesn't really work for them, though.
No, they're fire trees. They only propagate when there's fire. For all that everybody freaks out about fires in California, we used to, when we moved in, there was a whole thing on the wall of trees that were native to this area, and the vast majority of them only propagate through fire. Like their seed pods will not open up without a fire.
Yeah, they have to explode in order to expand.
Yeah.
Right, just like a lot of pine trees up here too. It's the natural cycle of the fire, the flame, and then the phoenix rising, the rebirth out of the ash. And part of the alchemical cycle is that it requires the death, the decay for the regrowth and the new life. And that it's just part of the natural cycle of the universe and of nature, Mother Gaia, and the alchemical processes.
Yep. Exactly. And that fire releases lots of salts. That's why activates carbon. That's why the year after fires, things usually grow like mad. Some of the recent California fires, that has not been the case. And I would also like to apologize to everybody for clashing heads with Chance's time. BurnEye had a Campbell from Autodidactic had scheduled a show not knowing that we had this at this time, and it was a very unusual time for him to do that. And BurnEye got to know this at the last minute, and so we had to reschedule. And I apologize to everybody for the late start and for bumping heads with Chance.
Yes, my apologies for that. Although it was a very good episode and on electroculture, and that meeting Matt was a crucial part. And we'll have to do an episode together with you and Matt in the future as well, Ben.
Oh, that's hilarious. If you weren't going to show up tonight, I was going to just do a solo episode on electroculture tomorrow. That's crazy.
The synchronicities, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Jared had asked me to do it.
Yep, that's awesome.
And so Gerald that is joining us right here at WPG Enlightened for Truth 2 channel has been doing a whole series on his experiments and results so far with the electroculture, pulsing the seeds, starting them, and then this spring, summer, Gerald, you're saying that you're going to set up a full acre, was it, or a little smaller than that?
Yeah, I got a family member who has 300 acres, and I've explained to them what I want to do, and they're going to be doing a garden right next to mine. I'm going to try and make it a little bit of a distance away, and you're going to be able to see what they grow and then what I grow through electroculture. So it'll be very interesting results. That's the whole idea of it. I'm going to try and do it as scientific as possible. I'm going to record and do lots of video on it. So I'll update everybody once it's all said and done for sure.
That's awesome, man.
That's awesome.
For control purposes, you'd want the other garden as like on the opposite side of the property, as far away, I believe, from where you're putting those antennas or the pulse currents in. And that Matt from Electric, or what's his channel? Elevate.
Electric. Elevate, cultivate, or cultivate.
Yeah, there we go. Elevate, cultivate, elevate, or elevate, cultivate. Yes, with the
guys, Matt, I'll get that right. Yeah,
who was just on, and that over his process and experiments, and everybody that he's branched out and has been in the community of electroculture with him now, and all the results they're getting, it's taking off, and it's awesome that it's trending and that there's results with it. And then the potentials with the monoatomics, the colloidal waters, the Ormus waters, structured water, agriculture that I've started doing, and now combining that with the knowledge and tests and technology of electroculture going forward, and bringing forward these reoccurring work groups that we're going to be doing, streams and whatnot, that we encourage everybody in the community that can to reproduce these tests, these grow your own food, but also do the tests of electroculture, and hopefully you'll get the same increased yield and production that we will, in a very short amount of time, be able to cancel out this scarcity, this control manipulation of depopulation, not enough food, not enough blah, blah, blah from the control, and bring it back into everybody's hands that, hey, with a couple of little antennas and some colloidal water and a few pots in your windows, you'll be able to substitute a decent amount of your own food, as well as just a small garden with more than enough to do for the average family, right? Even in urban settings.
I'm interested in electroculture on how it would apply to, like, Balderson. Is that your name? I'm sorry, I never got introduced to you. But yeah, so I'm interested on how it would apply to animals. Like, if your field was electrocultured, would your animal produce more milk? Would it be larger? Would it, you know what I mean? Like, I have no idea. I'm not in that position to do those tests. I'm just curious if you ever thought about doing something like that.
I am going to implement electroculture. I unfortunately have just moved to this farm about 2 years ago, and
step by step, right?
I understand.
Yeah. And you've already got solar units up, right? You got solar panel that you've got set up with it.
No, my panels aren't up yet. I have 42 panels. They were up at my last. They were up at my last farm, and this farm I don't have them up yet because I've got to clear out. There's like probably 80-foot logs that are about 5 feet long or 5 feet wide, and there's a whole pile of them at the only place where I can really do solar. Actually, I wonder if maybe the cat wants out. You might. I'm not sure if see a giant log pile down there I've been hacking at.
Absolutely.
And that's
right?
That's
step
a
by step
in
building, clearing, homesteading, right? But it's
when we got here, you couldn't even tell. There was no water hooked up, no power. We took apart the entire other farm and moved it over here. Had to build all the outbuildings, all of everything else, move all the animals. And then while we were here, try and, set the whole place up and get everything right. I've got the inverter in and the batteries in and all that, but I don't have the panels up yet because I got to get them. That's the only real decent place for sunlight to put my panels. And that log pile is in the way.
Oh, I understand that, man. Setting up a farm's a lot of hard work. It takes a few years to get it all running smooth.
Exactly.
And so Tunar, you had asked about Freddie Badger. He's got an album called Good Time People. It's on an app called Bandcamp. And you can download that.
Bandcamp's a pretty decent app and platform for sure. That's dope.
Yeah. So this summer, he is going to go to doing a whole banjo thing down in Kentucky, down by where, Tennessee. That's my bad. Down by where Jimmy Driftwood used to live. And there's like a whole school down there where Jimmy Driftwood used to play. It's kind of in his honor. So that's really awesome.
That was the opening banjo scene. Yeah, that was cool.
Freddie Badger is, that was right when we moved to this farm. That whole scene is, and so in the evenings, we'd work all day, and like the one scene in there's him and his dad helping put together the duck coop. The bobcats got all the ducks, but now it's a pig pen because then we somehow got a pig. one day we were just sitting here, and all of a sudden all the animals started screaming like bloody murder, and we came out expecting a bear or something, and there's just a damn potbelly pig just like, hey, I live here now.
That right? Good
Okay,
karma
pig.
right
Why
there. That's demonstration of good energy that the pig
Yeah,
comes
why
to
not?
you.
That's
And not the
bacon.
crazy murder pigs of Canada that they supposedly say, a little potbelly.
Well, that's bacon too. You just have to work harder.
I'm a vegetarian.
Oh, well, sorry then.
That's why the potbelly knew, right? It's like Benjamin's gonna protect me. Going
Yeah.
coming in.
Probably a
Yeah,
lot
we do.
healthier than me, that's for sure.
I mean, I drink milk and eat butter and cheese and honey and eggs.
I get that.
I'm not
Yeah.
a vegan. I just don't eat meat. I just
Yeah.
don't eat animals.
I can respect that. Each your own, man. That's great. Like I said, you're probably healthier than me.
Well, my wife was vegetarian and she became very unhealthy. And so we started really heavily looking at the blood type diet. And I've been trying to look for an expert on the blood type diet to talk to. So she's an O type blood. And when you look at the blood type diet, O's are supposed to have specifically red meat even. And they have more of the things in them, including the stomach acid, to digest that. And her hair had gotten super thin where she was starting to look like somebody who was the beginning of a cancer victim. Like, and her nails were so soft that she was talking about it today that she could literally tear it like it was fabric when like her nail would break or something. She just tear it. And, she would have just a lot of inflammation and pain at night. And so she started eating meat again. And then her hair immediately thickened right up, just boom.
Yep. That's
nails.
That's funny. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, her nails thickened right up. She quit having she used to lay in bed and cry at night because her joints hurt. And and like anything that touched her would hurt her. Like she would like flinch at everything, like pain was happening. And and now go ahead.
Sorry, there's a delay in my computer, almost like fibromyalgia, right?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
And once she started eating meat, that went away like within days. That went away. It was shocking. Wow. And now granted, I did get her like really high quality, because in my opinion, the difference is the solubility through fat. So I'm an A blood type, and I don't have any of these problems. My nails are like fucking rocks, and I don't have any of the same. I mean, I have male pattern balding, but other than that, it had nothing to do with my diet. Yeah,
life.
Yeah, exactly. That's just being an older man. But I heal quickly. I don't have a lack of energy. I'm actually up more than most people and doing more than most. Like I seen the esoteric alchemist right there. He was saying he'd never live on a farm. It's too much work. Well, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. That living, that being part of your life, being the master of your life and being intimately involved in every piece of it. Like Bernie was saying, I promise you, my cows, there's no fear in my cow milk. There's no pus. There's no blood. There's no, adrenaline. I go down and I pet my cows. And if I don't milk them soon enough, they start nagging at me and get very angry about it. And they'll come up to the house where I live and come tell me about it.
See, that's symbiotic. That's beautiful.
Right?
That's
exactly
awesome.
symbiotic. Great way
exactly.
And there's a few women in the chat asking and saying they've been having similar issues as Sage here. And my mom too. So I was vegetarian for 15 years. I was always healthy with it. My mom was vegetarian for about 30 years, but now she's had to start eating chicken. and it's helped her a lot in her diet or in her overall health with it. But as technology and health and stuff is evolving now, I believe there's a lot more vegetarian, vegan options, but then that's more processed too, so it's getting further away from the natural. And it's like I'm definitely not a health nutritionist or doctor, so all just speculation coming out of my mouth. But
those are beautiful crystals.
She was 10 years she was a vegetarian and a vegan during parts of that, which I think probably damaged her personally even more. I don't think vegan's a particularly healthy lifestyle to usually.
Well, isn't there something? Sorry, isn't there something in red meat that's like an enzyme that's specific to O blood? Like it's
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, guys know the meat's not the enzyme. You have the enzyme. I don't have that enzyme. And I have like a fifth of the stomach acid you do because I'm an A. And so I can't even break down big quantities of meat like that. And that's why when I was young and I used to eat meat, like my dad used to beat my ass for not eating meat. And he would get so mad because, you don't waste like that.
It's expensive, right? Yeah.
Right. And so my dad would beat my ass, and it would feel like there was like a brick in my stomach all the time when I'd eat meat. And I'm like, I haven't eaten meat in years. I even got as a vegetarian, I got into a motorcycle accident, and I flew off of a motorcycle doing about in between 55 and 60 and flew into a tree, and I shattered my whole left side. Within 2 months of the surgery, I was back out on the farm working and off of Oxycontins, the whole nine, back out doing my things. In fact, my last 15 or 20 Oxycontins, my dog got hit by a car. And while she was waiting to get surgery, she took my last 20 Oxycontins because when I looked it up, you can give them like, if it doesn't have the Tylenol in it, and it's the good pure ones, like they were giving me, you can give them a quart. It was like 0.03 per pound. And so I figured it all out. And until she could get in for surgery, that's how she got through it.
Whatever it takes, man. I hear you.
And good thing that you were able to get off of it, and that didn't turn into the opposite, where the dependency of can form and whatnot. Since that
was miserable. I don't know how people like that. It was miserable. I mean, the one thing I did understand. So for me, the one thing that was a little bit addictive was when you're on it, you feel no pain. And I'm like, I've got 3 blown out discs in my back. I've got 2 punctured bones. I've got, more pins and plates in me than you can shake a stick at. I've got Wilson's disease. There's a threshold of pain that I'm at that most people just don't experience normally. And so that took all that away. And then when that starts coming back and you haven't had it for a while.
Yeah, myself, like that was one of the hardest parts. Like I was prescribed Oxycontin for 10 years and like battled like bad addiction with it, but have been off of it for 4 years now, off of all opiates, thank God. And I'm actually part of the Purdue class action lawsuit because of the amount it messed up my life. But the point being, you'd get so afraid of getting sick when you'd run out of it and like the withdrawal, and that on top of that you'd be magnified with now feeling pain that you hadn't felt in an extremely long time. The entire time on it, that it would then become this even more mental burden and like mental addiction as much as the physical withdrawal as well. And it just, I don't recommend it for anybody. Like only use a prescribed opiate at the very last measure sort of thing, and to not ever stay on them long term, or it will cause massive problems with
it was miserable. I wasn't
It
addicted
shuts
to
down your
Oxy, but
digestive system.
really?
Go ahead, Gerald. Yeah, dude, I
Oh,
couldn't shit for it was worse than prison.
wow. I know I had problems when I was addicted to morphine because I got into a car accident and went through the windshield and had issues myself. But I never got on Oxy, thank God, because that you guys are tough. I'll tell you, because that stuff I heard horror stories on. I mean, the morphine itself, I became addicted to, and like you said, when you're coming off of it, you get the pain that you missed, and it's amplified because of the addiction and the craving and everything else on top of it. It's brutal. I don't know how you did the Oxy
Yeah,
thing,
everybody
though.
thinks it's the high.
Wow,
Everybody's like, he just wants to get high. Like, no, you don't
it's
understand the
not like
pain
that.
that all of a sudden just freaking I just started feeling again. The amount just woof, like
Yep,
crippling pain.
yep. Yeah, it's times 10. It's like the original pain,
Yeah,
and then it's times
yeah,
10. Yep, yep.
100%.
Brutal.
It's like being in a dark room and all of a sudden somebody shined a spotlight in your eyes. Like,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
where normally light, you know, that's the pain. The pain
Good
just all of a sudden
analogy.
goes,
Yeah, good
yeah,
analogy.
that was
Yeah.
that was a rough, like probably week and a half. I was taking what I did to abide was I was using a lot of pain cream with CBD in it. My wife makes a really nice pain cream.
Oh, yeah.
That's even better than what I was using. Yeah. And then I was eating a lot of edibles.
Oh, yeah.
And
That'll
so
help.
that's
Definitely.
and that helped me for about, like I said, 10 days when I got off the oxys, when the pain was just unbearable. I was like, fuck these oxys though.
Well,
That,
what I
you
was
know,
doing when I came off of it, I was eating weed, but I was eating it live off the plant. So I wasn't getting high, but the pain was gone. Made a
yeah,
huge difference. Yeah. But I'll tell you, it tastes
huge,
gross.
horrifying.
Yeah, yeah. But it made a big difference on the pain, though. But it tastes gross. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we've all had a youth made pot brownie that was heavily plant material. Like, geez.
Yeah. Little green, a little more green than it should be, so to speak. I've had a few of those, unfortunately.
But
So,
yeah,
so Jeremiah was shining some crystals in there. I don't know if you've
yeah,
seen that previously
I
that we
did.
were talking. Jeremiah, you still there?
Oh yeah, and I am super happy with this. So I'll kind of give your audience a background on what it was that I
Please
was
do.
just showing a video while you guys were chatting about interesting stuff. Now I missed the first part of the show, so I don't know really what I missed. So I'll have to go back and watch it.
I just met
That's because I was.
Jeremiah the other day. Yeah, everybody. He's fucking brilliant. So sorry I didn't introduce. And I had never met Gerald before, and he came in the middle of a story. Hi, Gerald. I'm
Oh,
Benjamin Balderson.
I'm Gerald. I'm the coil guy, so to speak, right?
Absolutely. I mean,
Nice.
over 100 count so far, and
175 separate geometrical coils I've built. Yeah, all different ones.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and he's the genius that explains it all.
I
Yeah.
have a very, very wide verse background, entirely uneducated from the classical academic sense. I mean, obviously high school diploma, but past that point, it's all self-taught. I've worked in industry. I've been taught by industry in the field, and everything else kind of comes from that point. And I ended up teaching at colleges and teaching teaching a lot of students as well because of the stuff that I had learned. Which, if you find out, any kind of trade school, those universities, they'll try to bring in people that are coming from the industry that weren't professors and teach there because they already know what they're doing. So I kind of played that role. But anyways, I can basically tell you, don't give one damn about tenure or convention. We're doing some really interesting stuff here, and this is another example. So
if you take a look at the normal crystallization process for Rochelle salts, the first thing we looked at with those very optically clear and rectangular crystals is using a tech that Liminal came up with, and she had this just fantastic idea, which it's really simple in principle, but I didn't think of it. And it's normally we would grow a crystal inside of a mother liquid and just allow it to kind of grow and form its own natural shape and hope that it turns out well. But the problem with that is, as it absorbs some of the soluble material inside of that liquid, it will change the density of that material, and then it forms striations and all kinds of other issues. But what we actually want is crystals that have a fairly flat surface, and Rochelle crystals generally grow into something that's a little bit more like a football shape, cross-sectionally anyways. So she's like, why don't you just put exactly the height of the liquid that you want to grow these things into, so you have that exact dimension, and they just simply let them crystallize out from the seed. And like, well, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, much larger surface area gives it a place to sort of expand. So the seed starts out, it grows from the surface down and hits the glass plate that's underneath it, and then that's its height. From that point, there's no more liquid on top or on bottom, so it just grows. Yeah, it just grows outwards. And so as it grows outwards, it's going to follow that same exact lattice and proceed onwards. So we could basically make capacitor plates of Rochelle crystals, which are piezoelectric and thermoelectric. One of the little known facts about Rochelle crystals is that they're highly thermally responsive. In fact, as I was dissolving some of the Rochelle salts into the solvent a few days ago, I noticed that the entire liquid itself dropped down by 15 degrees Celsius as I was dissolving it. And it was on a hot plate that was set to 120 degrees Celsius. So I was like, wow, okay. So apparently dissolving Rochelle salts in a proper mixture, and that'll absorb thermal energy from the water. And I thought that was really interesting that dissolution would be thermally active. And Rochelle salts have been used in other claimed energy conversion devices to trap and capture energy from the atmosphere in form of Brownian motion, which would basically make Lord Kelvin roll over in his grave. So if we can capture thermal energy here and actually convert it where these things will be oscillating and get colder when they're running, I will be,
endothermic entropedic. So am I getting this right? You grew those crystals you were shining with the laser?
Yeah, those didn't exist this time yesterday.
Wow.
And
Isn't
so
that
yeah,
awesome?
her tech, Liminal's tech is the one that made them flat and perfectly at the exact same height. I've grown a lot of other shapes as well too. Prior to that, like the alum pyramid that you were looking at earlier, that's not Rochelle, that's alum. But what we want to do is ultimately we're going to make some. We're going to use the piezoelectric properties of Rochelle crystals and their thermal properties, and we're going to grow them in plates.
Crystal battery. Sorry to interrupt, just for the viewers. The importance and relevance being those Rochelle salts are the most important part of the Hutchinson crystal battery piezoelectric part, right, and that you've now engineered at Liminal has it. Congratulations, sister! Like a huge development. This next level tech of how to make those Rochelle salts from the little tiny granulars that you get, but into that perfect.
Thank you. I know I've been slow coming out, but I don't like doing labels, but you could say that I am a researcher and experimenter in material sciences. For anyone that needs to latch onto something with what I'm doing, that's one of the big things I'm doing right now.
But here's the big thing I want to tell you guys too. One of the most exciting parts about what we kind of discovered. I'm impatient. I'm just generally impatient. I want to do rapid prototyping super fast. If you try to grow a Rochelle crystal like what you just looked at today, which is, fairly large, nice and even, it would normally take about a week to make a crystal that size. So they generally would grow at a rate of about maybe 1 millimeter a day is kind of common for Rochelle crystal growth. I've now done an experiment and a series of adaptations to the point where I was like, how fast can I make these things grow and how far can I push it? I got 170 times the speed of growth, I can actually watch a Rochelle crystal grow. My insane maximum was 1 millimeter per minute.
But it wasn't optically useful.
Oh yeah, awesome.
What?
Yep,
What
you
did you
can watch
do?
it grow. You can stare at it and
Accelerate
watch
it.
it grow.
What did you do to accelerate it?
And can you do a live demonstration of them growing on one of our next alchemy streams, please?
So when he's talking about this, everybody, for
Ernie.
everybody that doesn't speak Jeremiah level, he's, like I said, he's brilliant. Makes everything I say sound really good when he repeats it behind me. Holy shit.
Actually, if you want to see
So
it, if
when
you
you're
want to see it
making a
live, I
crystal,
have the solution that I've got to reheat.
you
I
have-
can actually drop a seed in here, and you could watch it grow
Yeah.
live. Like
So what
literally
he
on
means
camera
by
right now.
seed
Click
is
that.
just
Yes,
an already
please.
crystal. What he means by seed is a crystal that's already formed. So that way it's basically already got a structure that the rest of it's going to follow. The mother solution he's talking about is the slurry that we always talk about, where the solvent has been dissolved off enough, has been evaporated off enough that the crystal can still take
People should be
form,
doing-
but it's still a nice solvent mix where it's able to move in a line and put itself where it needs to be. So it's a really tricky mixture that you've got to find where the crystal will hold structure, but there's enough solvent in it for it to be able to align behind it, not just turn into a goo of mineral.
Well said, Ben.
Yeah, very much. I'm just gonna grab a tripod and I'll set this up. Now, what you're about to see is a crystal grow at such an absolutely insane bonkers speed. As far as Rochelle crystals go, it's not going to be optically great, and I will redissolve it later. But
That's
that was my
okay.
next question. Are you getting any clarity whatsoever? And is the
well,
structure
yeah, as you
very
can see, those had optical clarity. They're basically like okay, so Rochelle salts, they grow with a striation, much like what's that material?
Selenite or calcite would be good examples, but calcite is much more transparent than selenite.
She knows her gems and.
So
bring over the
Sure.
is it layering like a feldspar then?
Like a feldspar? What's a feldspar?
Feldspar is a type of crystal. The classic.
That's the crystals you like, labradorite, calcite, sunstone. All those are feldspars where it has that.
How the cleavage forms.
Based on the
cleavage.
crystal lattice, based on the geometry, I want to say no, because I've looked at the raw specimens of some of those crystals you mentioned. I'm going to say they're, because of their geometry, it's something different than feldspar.
Right. Is it layering like some feldspar?
There is definitely a layering going on there. If you don't control the evaporation, you're going to end up with tears. And if you want something that is uniform, you need to have a slow evaporation. You need to be a little bit more patient, even if you can figure out a faster method to do it. If you want something that has a high quality optical diffraction. So that's what we're going for here, to get other effects like the piezoelectric effect that's been associated with Rochelle crystals. And it has been notoriously hard for most people that try their hand at it to create optically clear and uniform Rochelle crystals. So we just showed you some initial examples of us changing our methodology. And the next crystals you will see from us will be much, much better, much clearer.
Yeah, we think we've got it pretty well worked out.
What epic specimens for the first result.
So for everybody, when I'm talking about how pressure doesn't actually create the crystal, this is what I'm talking about. The pressure is what stops the release of the solvent from the slurry. And so the pressure is what you use to control the time. And as you're burping out that pressure, now more solvent can be released from the slurry, and then everything realigns. So that's what you're using the pressure for, not to create the crystal in and of itself, but to control the timing of the crystal.
I would say the hardest part about this is creating the right saturation level in the solvent. And then the easy part is distributing it over a surface area that allows the crystal to grow in such a uniform manner. So the hardest part really is getting that right level of saturation.
No idea how many times I've screamed at because a seed's crystal dissolved. Yeah. I'm like, Gah! Here we go. And then like 2 seconds later, it's too thick. Like 2 seconds, you're like. Gah!
So, can you see inside of the beaker here? I've got. Let me see. Where is my camera on this thing? So I've got a tiny little seed between those tongues.
Yeah.
It's very hard to see. And I'm going to drop it in there. Okay, so here we go. I just dropped it in there.
Yes, sir. We able to see that. We can see it.
And so right there, right in front of my tweezers, you see that little dot right down there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and place the cover slide back on the container and just watch that go. So I'm going to go ahead and, walk away from this. I'll mute this out, listen to you guys in the other room while this thing sits there. So it's going to take just a moment for it to kick itself off. And then after that point, it will start to grow rather shockingly fast.
Right, and it's like an inversion growth rate where it's slow to start and then just accelerates as more and more surface.
Right, exactly. Right now, what's happening is that's straight out of the pre-broken up pieces, and it's kind of chose one to stick in there. But as it gets larger, its surface area gets bigger, and it can just absorb more and more and more. And so once it kicks off, we'll see it start to become pretty big, pretty quick. And I suppose maybe I can get an overhead view here. I guess I could probably leave this uncovered just for a minute here, and bump this up overhead. Pull this. Overhead view is going to be much easier to actually watch it do its thing. And let's see, are you taking off yet? Not quite yet. All right, there we go. So that should pretty well do it. Wow, the other one really grew a lot. Huh.
How about the one with the acetone barrier?
Yep, the acetone barrier. We've been playing around with double solvents.
Binary solvent systems is the term to look into if you guys are interested.
So that is just going to take it's still going to take a couple of minutes to get started. Like I said, it's a little bit slow for it to kick off. It's got to first structure the mother liquid around it. So what it's doing right now is electrically aligning the mother liquid. And once it gets enough aligned lattices, then the liquid itself will start to react, and it will very rapidly absorb it. And then hopefully you can see that that wild, 1 millimeter per minute growth. And we're just waiting for it. So I suppose, hang tight. We'll come back to this in a couple of minutes, and I'm going to just listen to you guys in the other room.
Right, and that's a good point, is that it's structuring the water first, right? It has to align everything where it's building the easy water, the exclusion zones, where it literally puts the negative ions around it, and then the positive in there, and then from that, all the lattices, the crystallization that happens, and then once it's fully structured all the water, then the crystal starts to form out of the seed itself and pull the chemical reaction and crystallization from the dissolved chemical in the water onto the solid base crystal seed. Correct?
Right. Actually, this is kind of strange here. Really, I guess the mud liquid might still be a little bit too warm yet, because it would normally kick off way faster by this point. I'm wondering if I changed something in the formula that I didn't write down.
Right. That's a key point right there. And right, this is real science live streaming. It never works out the way you want it to. And I know what you're talking, especially with my electrolysis, about the temperatures of the water, and even with the frozen waters and salts, and how just the structure and crystallizations that happen, and certain reactions won't happen if there's too much energy in it, or
that's weird.
salt.
Yeah, this isn't gonna work. This isn't gonna work here. Formula must have
round 2.
Geez, did I just no? That was the other tray. Yeah, I knew the other tray. Yeah. No, that's not gonna work right here on camera. Unfortunately, that's not concentrated enough. So, dang, I can actually see it's solving. It looks like it's acting like it's undersaturated right now. That's super, super strange. And here's the really pain in the butt part. This is almost room temperature, but it's just about 5 degrees Celsius warmer than it's supposed to be. That difference in 5 degrees is the difference between it dissolving the seed that I just put in there, which is what it's doing right now, or it growing that seed at 1 milliliter per minute.
Faster at a colder temperature?
It does, but I can't cool it down fast enough for live.
For 5 minutes.
I could do that.
Yeah, why don't you throw it in the fridge for 5 minutes?
Yeah, you know what? She's got a great idea. I'm going to throw it in the fridge for 5 minutes.
All right, then. Fair enough.
Sounds good.
That'll kick it off.
So see how it looks now, and see how it looks.
So I hate to do this to everybody, but I got to get up super early for a contract in the morning. So
fair enough.
I'm going to have to. What's that?
Fair enough, my friend, and thank you.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to dip out. It was good meeting you there, Balderson. For sure, we'll have to get together again and talk. For sure.
100%. That's some excellent work you're doing, brother. I'd definitely like to talk again.
Yeah, and hopefully my my computer won't be glitchy this time. I'll be able to use my camera, and I'll show off my male pattern baldness.
Yeah. Isn't it a joy?
It's life, man. All right, everybody out there, thank you, and thanks, Bernie, and like I said, good meeting you. We'll talk to you soon, Jeremiah. Everybody,
take it easy, buddy.
You have a great evening.
You too. Great sleep, great day tomorrow, and good farming electroculturing, my friend. All right, and so that's why I hate doing demonstrations live, because it's like this, but it's real science, and we'll see when you. It probably will accelerate now in the fridge once it's cooled off. And it's funny, one of the first times I ever did an electrolysis monoatomic live demonstration, my second stream ever, or wasn't even a stream, it was a recording with Rex Bear over at Leak Project. And I had boiled the water instead of room temperature, just trying to get the salt dissolved all quickly, and it completely screwed up the reaction and the normal structuring of the water, the separation of the exclusion zones, and how the monoatomics formed. And it's just like,
Are you trying to force saturation?
No, just what's going on right here between Bert and Ernie with the monoatomic material on the top of the water, and then on the about an inch from the bottom of the jar, there's another layer there, and then some more at the bottom that there's these exclusion zones.
Yeah, I see that.
That the materials form, and
it almost looks like a cloud, if I may say.
Yeah, they are clouds.
Yeah.
It's 100%. They form all these different clouds, and some of the their layers and self-formation, I guess, patterns. Then they also do spiraling. They do tubulars, and they do the areas of clear water, and then high concentration of them, and different elements or oxides also will separate to different layers than the monoatomics or the single water as well in some of the reactions.
Is this the one that you applied the higher temperature to? The hotter temperature?
No, this is right now. It's room temperature. It's been going for a while now, a few days, but it was unplugged for, I guess, 24 hours since my last stream.
Depending on what you're trying,
plugged it in an hour ago.
Depending on what you're trying to grow, sometimes having a temperature gradient, it's a bit more complicated because you kind of need like pipettes and certain tools. But a heat gradient can be useful in the growth of certain crystals. And then, yes, like slow and steady usually is the best way to get the highest quality crystals. You just have to be patient. You might find ways to speed it up and, get like 90% quality, but slow and steady is the way to go. You just need to be patient.
Yeah, it'll only take a few minutes for that thing to basically drop down in temperature now that it's in the fridge, and that should happen pretty quickly here. So in the meantime, I will say, the other purpose of why I'm growing these things. So there's this magical, wonderful thing called a lofting cake. And it was just a term coined by Thomas Townsend Brown. And we can take a look at a couple of various factors. And the two most important ones are our nuclear magnetic spin ratio, which is going to be, 1/2 spin, one single spin. It's going to be maybe, a 9/3 spin. So how many times it actually has to rotate it back around before it gets to its original position. So this is the main key that we're looking for, is things with the right spin ratios that give us the properties we want in order to store up angular momentum and precess around so that we can add extra energy into these materials. The second thing we care about is the electromotive charge. So this would be a scalar trap potential, an ionic crystal, if you will. And when you have something that doesn't have a balanced number of electrons versus its protons, it acts really, really strangely when you apply acceleration force or other electrical fields to it. And so when we combine both these things together, instead of having, say, a pressed powder like most dielectrics or most capacitors, in this case, we can actually grow our dielectrics and give them the right lofting material properties that we're looking for, so that when we apply a pulsed electric field, they will lose weight, and a significant amount of it. How significant? Well, if it's formulated correctly, they'll go negative. The great thing about lofting materials and negative mass ratio for when we invert our mass and our inertia for gravitational isotopes and inertial isotopes, those two things are kind of interchangeable. So the more normally things would have the same amount of gravitational mass as they would have inertial mass. These are the common non-isotopic materials, but a lot of things don't necessarily possess that exact same property, which means that if you drop them from height, they'll actually fall at different speeds, which of course we're all told that doesn't happen. It's impossible. Everything falls at the same exact speed. It's this many, 9.8 meters per second. Well, that's not actually true, turns out. So unbalanced charge affects things differently, and we can create a brand new material which will fall at a different speed, including and up to falling upwards. So all that is coming, and we are expecting to be able to grow these materials straight like this and get the exact type of crystalline structure and lattice and response that we want.
Which, like they said, I'm not sure what Jeremiah's the other voice. I don't know your situation over there, but like she said, it's definitely patience. It's you can't make it happen fast. In the plant world where you do it a lot, if you try and heat it up quickly, it will crystallize quickly, but it won't be the results you want. It'll make a bunch of mini crystals that are really milky. It's not good, and you won't get that real nice sharp structuring that you want out of your crystals. Haley.
And sorry, on the topic of what's happening in front of Bert and Ernie there, always live. It never works out the way you want. The anode of zinc had eroded away, so I've disturbed it, but it's quite interesting that you can see the material collect and not fall all the way to the bottom, and then also start to oxidize a bit. And I will be reconnecting the anode here in a second, at which point you'll start to see the cathode producing a whole bunch of hydrogen. And that's the key point of what I wanted to demonstrate is the hydrogen. And Mr. Ben, do you want to talk about your hydrogen project that you've got going a little bit with the whisks and stuff? Have you run it at all yet, or what?
Yeah, I took it out to had it out, setting it up, and right when that happened, we had that horrible snowstorm, and we got a hard freeze. It was insane, and my my reactor cracked. The container for the reactor cracked, so I'm gonna have to redo that. Get that going again, which I was actually going to do that tomorrow probably. I'd already been thinking about it because we're just getting down to the season where we're kind of trying to make some different transitions where despite the fact that it's been snowing and cold, we're about to be in no, I'm not at sea level. I'm about almost 1,400 feet.
Nice.
Does it play a part? Oh, for sure, it's going to play a part. You know, the air is thinner up here. You have less pressure. So, I mean, even something simple like water boils at a different temperature than it does at sea level. A lot of people don't realize that atmospheric pressure plays a huge part on whether something's going to transition to another state or not. So you can literally boil water at room temperature if you put it in a vacuum and you throw enough vacuum on it, it pulls off enough of the outside pressure that water boils, transitions right into the next state. So absolutely, that's a huge deal where we live. It definitely makes a lot of changes and things, and I have to make adjustments for it. I've not seen that sea levels changed at all, but the Plymouth Rock's still supposedly sitting in the same spot it always was, and they have like a whole building around it, and it's still right there. Flattoberfest 2023, Vegas, baby. That's right. That's so what we're talking about.
Ben, you were talking about atmospheric pressure. Have you done any like gas diffusion? Gas phase diffusion with the growing of crystals. I wanted to know if you noticed a difference at different altitudes.
So when I was before where I was probably about 800 feet, 700.
Yeah, we were at the same elevation in Whitmore.
Same elevation.
Almost exactly the same.
Yeah, because in South Dakota, it's harder up here for sure. It's harder up here for some reason. Because in South Dakota, I didn't have any problems with growing crystals near as much. It takes a whole lot more work out here. And I've been cussing about that for a while actually, but I always it seems like there's been such a deterioration in the solvent quality, in the different media qualities. Like, I don't know if you get into like the CRC or anything like that, where you're remediating while you're in the solvent state and pulling things out in line. I swear that the media has changed. I swear it has. Because there's things that I do.
It's one test at a time for me. I just want to change one variable at a time. And something that I have researched and I have seen for myself is that the solvent in which you are crystallizing, that solvent co-crystallizes with the compound that's mixed in which is why they tell you to not disturb the liquid. As that crystallization starts happening, vibration can cause other points of nucleation, and it can affect the quality of the crystals that form.
I was wondering about that actually when you guys decided to move the water into the fridge and put it, and then you're going to have to bring it out again so that you're actually disturbing it twice in that process.
Jeremiah isn't trying to prove a best quality crystal. He's just trying to prove.
No, these are just live science experiments. That's all right. And it's like
he's trying to show you speed.
We'll do on another one too. That
you want quality. You want to do your best to not disturb it. Put it somewhere where it's the least airflow, the best seal. So like if you're trying to grow it in a beaker, I recommend getting a bowl and putting a glass plate over it. So that beaker is going to let a little airflow in, possibly particulates that might cause points of nucleation and dirty points of nucleation that would affect the quality of the crystals. So that is, if you liked the specimens you saw earlier, we're going to improve upon them. But that came from creating a better seal than you would get out of a beaker.
Right, and like it's another key point is that this is all unplanned, random, on the spot science happening, and that sometimes the results work out the way you want them to.
We're very happy with the results. We're just going to change the evaporation rate and slow it down.
So I've just
so what we usually use is I got this is we call them a miner, and you just put you just put a tri clamp on it, same thing, but then you can control. This allows you to control your evaporation. You can see what your pressure is. You can see inside, see what you got going on. They're pretty nice. We call them miners.
Nice. And do you mind showing those crystals one more time? Like they're so epic. Like very impressive that you two are able to grow those. Like,
all right, I'm just gonna do this one more time here. So I've got it in an ice bath now to really force it to cool down, because it turns out it actually takes a really long time for this stuff to cool down, thanks to the high thermal mass of the salt being added into that mixture. And that magnet is in the wrong position, so I'm gonna go ahead and get that stir bar the heck out of the way, get it over to the other side. There we go. All right, so I have dropped the seed in now, and it is certainly colder. Now, let me just go ahead and move this over the cam. That should be good. And I'll tilt that down. And I will point out in just a moment that seed. So, see, we're looking pretty good here. There it is. Okay, so I've got it at an angle. You can see the seed crystal there reflecting, and it's that little thing right over here. And now, with that being colder, it's not going to dissolve. I can see it's actually already larger than when I put it in there. And that means as this ice does sink in and cool it down, we will be able to watch that live. I'm gonna put more ice in there just to kind of force this. Because why not?
My first live experiment was on a TV show I had, and I didn't realize it, but there was a duck quacking at me from like 3 feet away the whole time. Everybody was cracking up.
Yeah, man, that is hilarious. Oh yeah, it's definitely already getting bigger. You can see that, and as soon as it kicks off, it'll be pretty fast after that. Go ahead and maybe rotate this bowl so I can get a better reflection angle and have that seed located in a place where it's not over the Pyrex brand name. All right. So I will give that just a couple minutes to kick off. And now we should be good because it's just going to drop in temperature as we go on here. As those ice cubes melt and they cool the sidewalls. And at some point, it's going to just go nuts and it'll really kick off. But it's already working now. So unlike last time, it's already working right now. And I can see it getting larger.
And now you understand what half my day feels like.
Oh, pretty much.
Just me staring at these things, at reactions. Like,
And I guess if we wanted to do, if we wanted to do something for fun, I can pop the other one in there too. So I got this other, much larger seed, which won't actually be quite as optically clear, but I'll drop that in too. And put that over on that side. So now we've got 2 in there, and that one's bigger, which means it should kick off actually quite a bit faster. So please proceed. I'm going to step away from this thing and just kind of let it run. And then we'll be able to see what it does. I guess both you guys are busy, eh?
I'm always right here.
I had to go get my cat. The cat's a real pain. She's figured out that if she scratches on the window, I'll let her outside. But then also if she scratches on the window outside, I'll get irritated and go outside. If she won't come back in through the window, she makes me go outside and stand outside the doorway, and then she'll jump on my shoulder and come in. She won't come back in through the window. She'll just keep scratching it.
Right? Cats, they're evil that way, but they're amazing still.
Yeah. No, she's fantastic, but yeah, totally irritating. And if I'm in a show, that's when she does it the most.
So we're starting to get a little bit of the reaction, just waiting for it.
This thing thing to get started, and so yeah, you might as well go ahead and entertain. Well, we wait for this thing that should be moving much faster, but at some point, water must have been added, so I can't explain that.
It will accelerate and take off. Or will it not, and something has changed? The process of experimental development and repeating the process and developing the technology. And speaking of which, with your hydrogen device there, Mr. Ben, one thing I suspect is that you might want to switch your anode side from the steel whisk to a more harder metal, maybe such as tungsten or something like that, where it'll corrode and erode the anode within a few days to a week, usually running with just the stainless steel, I find.
You're corroding the stainless within a week?
Yeah, depending. Well, I guess you might be using a different solvent, so it might react.
Well, I'm using lye so I can get because a lot of people don't realize that pH is just a potential of hydrogen. And so the more base something is, the better reaction you're going to get for trying to make the HHO. And so lye is what I'm using for the reaction.
Nice. It's a good one. And I use lye for nano coating a lot of my copper, breaking down that outside to the single atom or covalent bond on it. And here you can see the cathode coil bubbling away with all of that hydrogen coming off of it. And it's pierced and penetrated that layer of the monoatomics there that we see, and gone all the way to the bottom. So there's gas all the way to the bottom, yet it's still keeping that one bottom area somewhat exclusion zoned. And the only reason it's so messed is because I dropped the entire metal into it and disturbed it all. So it's more of an electromagnetic result or field or structure that happens within these exclusion zones or electrolysis.
Yeah, that's easy to see now, that smaller one. Real easy
starting
to
to grow.
see.
Oh yeah. Look at it starting to, oh yeah. She's gonna keep growing faster and faster.
So nice with salts. Like a lot of times I'm crystallizing oils, and that's such a pain in the ass.
Right, like a lot of the ancient alchemical processes, they're all like weeks long and like at least day long, different stuff.
40 days. 40 days for a basic process. Like, for your most basic processes. And if you speed it up, like it's the oil side, the salt side's usually fine. The salt side, the masculine, it can take a beating. It don't care. That's actually what brings it together is the fire. Like the masculine side likes that beating. The feminine side, you try and rush that feminine side, a woman's scorn never comes back. You scorch that mercury, you freaking burn that oil just a little bit, your experiment is fucked. It's done. It will not react the way you want it to anymore. And you're like, why did I hurry that?
Jeremiah, let me know, do you mind? Scott's requesting if you'd please re-explain the experiment we are watching one more time quickly.
All right, so I'll use my laser for this. Let me go ahead and get this thing powered on. All right, so our seed is right here. This is the first seed I dropped in. This is all because I had just taken it off the hot plate. So this is our one seed. This is our larger seed over here. And it hasn't started to take off yet. So what we're looking at here is a shell has started to form around our original seed crystal here. And it now is about twice the size it was when it went in. And this is the point where we will start to see a rapid takeoff, because now that it's established a new lattice and it's structured the liquid around it, it's just going to get faster and faster. And so we're going to be able to watch that thing grow. Now at some point it'll really kick, and then we'll get to that whole 1 millimeter per minute. And that should happen within the next couple of minutes right now, as based on what I'm already looking at with the trend. It should be pretty short here.
And that we have to stop harassing you to bumping the glass, which probably disturbs a little bit each time, and the laser even more. But it's real science. We're figuring it out. We're watching it. And patience is that virtue that makes it worthwhile when it happens. And you can see this. The seed looks like it's at least doubled, right?
Yeah, it's definitely doubled already.
Oh, at least doubled. And obviously for camera purposes, it doesn't work out. But I've always found that, and that's part of why I have such a sealed stainless steel container. The light seems to cause problems also. It does not do as well. They do much better in the dark.
I actually do believe that light is going to be an incredibly useful thing. And that's one of the topics that her and I were discussing earlier, is that we intend to photonically stimulate these things under the right direction as they're growing and alter their properties. I'm also considering charging the entire liquid and trying to strip it of electrons so that I can get a slightly different response out of it. See, the electrolyte should respond slightly differently, and so will a crystal if it doesn't have an equally balanced number of charges.
It's right in between made and in on the lettering for the small one there, brother. And on the large one, it's right neck. It's covering the S on cups.
Yeah, the one that we're looking at right now that we just dropped in, which has started, it's almost dead center of the screen there. Or, of this camera view. And that liquid is still a bit warm. It's right now just cooling below room temperature because, like I said, the salt, all the extra Rochelle salt and its mass, it takes a lot more thermal mass and increases that thermal density of the water. So it means it's going to take a while longer for the energy to be transferred out of it and cool down than it would if it was just, say, plain water.
I actually did a science fair experiment on exactly that in elementary school of what boiled faster, water or water with salt in it.
That's pretty awesome. I am actually considering, and I've been looking into various different lithium-based materials because I would very much like to start playing around with growing a dilithium crystal. Now, of course, dilithium isn't actually a thing that exists in the conventional mainstream, but it is a thing that can be made. It just requires a bit of alchemical manipulation. We can use exotic vacuum objects or charge clusters to bind two lithium nuclei together by stripping some of their electrons off and using the electric field from one of these clusters to create a gap, which would make a very lightweight crystal with interesting optical properties. One of those things is the normal lithium hydroxides and various lithium compounds that can be made into a salt would be clear, or I should say they'd be like a whitish powder, like a clearish crystal. But when you actually split them apart, they optically refract differently, and they all start to turn pink. Jeez, where have we seen that before? So, and then after that is set up, I should be able to inject positrons into that gapped lattice and use them as a power resource for a warp drive.
Yeah. I want to breach space-time and matter.
Someday, mankind will accept that the vacuum is not just simply made of electromagnetic energies flying all around, but it is actually made of stuff. This is one of those things that I've been talking about quite a lot over the course of the last year, but that stuff we can just kind of call shorthand positronium, positron electron pairs, are virtually everywhere in every single femtometer of the entire universe. And they're the reason for why space is heavy, why it has physical mass, why we have a cosmological constant, a gravitational constant. Why does the speed of light exist at all? Why should it change, to a minimum number after we exit the gravitational field of, say, some massive body like Earth, where the speed of light is slightly slower on Earth than it is in space? But why does it actually have some arbitrary limit? Well, because space is heavy. It's a refractive index, just like a lens. And the reason for why it has this property is not just because of electromagnetic energy flying all over the place, but because it has physical matter in it. Now, how do we know it has physical matter in it? Well, if we put two 511 kiloelectron volt photons into some volume of empty space, in complete vacuum, absent of all other matter, these two photons in the place where they cross will produce a total of 1,022 kiloelectron volts, and that interaction is sufficient to split apart a positron-electron pair. But strangely, that pair splits apart at an arbitrary distance for where the photons interact, and it's not an exacting thing. And we know this is a Schwinger limit. So why is it arbitrary? Well, because those two particles that we split apart were already there before we split them apart. And if they were already there, and we can do this literally anywhere in the entire universe, and it functions the same way, which it does, then we know that the entire universe is filled with these things. So when we take them apart, they become now physical massive particles with their own mass and gravitational field, and they are removed from the vacuum, which means that the vacuum shrinks. We are contracting space-time when we take them apart. And when we recombine them, they seem to, quote unquote, annihilate, but what's really happening is they're just simply recombining, and they go back into the cosmic lattice and form new space-time. So we can literally like take an ice cream scoop out of space-time in front of our ship, and we can put that scoop through some plasma conduits and recombine it at the back end of the ship to produce an expansion in space. And that just allows our entire ship, our craft, or our drive to pull itself forward or be pulled straight into the region where we're sucking out the space. Exactly the same way where if you have some solid object in a pool of water or some hydraulic fluid and you move your hand through it, you know, suddenly take out like some amount of that water or that fluid, it's going to pull whatever object is sitting in there into that space where you just remove the fluid. Works the exact same way with warp drive.
Speaking of which, there was on Leak Project today with Rex Bear, Dave of Generation Z or
I've seen it. He had it absolutely right. I have to comment on that. I've been talking about this stuff for freaking years, trying to explain to people that epsilon and mu are the only two properties of spacetime that we need to modify in order to control or change the refractive index, which allows us to change everything from chemical binding energies to the speed of light. And he nailed it today. That was an amazing broadcast. If anybody hasn't seen it, they have to see it. It's required watching for backyard physicists, warp drive researchers, anybody who ever wants to build a flying craft, or people who want to have, you know, an infinite source of energy, because they're all directly related to the same thing. They all access this fundamental cosmic lattice of positronium and find ways to screw with its structure.
So I'm going to be reaching out to him, and I've talked to him in the past. He was wanting to do a podcast together, so I will make sure to put that together for you, good Jeremiah, and pass your contact on to him. I'll email him here after this episode is done. And I think I'm going to run over and see. It looks like they're building some nanotubes are growing on this jar here as well. And you can definitely notice, especially the bottom right, the bigger, newer seed is starting to grow quite a bit. But as it grows bigger, it will accelerate in the rate of it.
Yeah, it's a very parabolic type of reaction.
Exactly, parabolic.
So yeah, let's take a look at what you got going on. See, that's looking pretty nice. Interesting layer separation. There's a very clear density difference. You've got a lot of sediment or precipitate on the bottom, but then you have this fluffy material that's on top of that sediment, and we both know what that is.
Don't do it, Ernie. It's not worth it.
By the way, Burn, I don't know if you were talking, but if so, I'm not hearing any.
I'm muted for 1 sec.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I just want to let you know, just in case.
All right, sorry, back now. Yeah, so it wasn't the nanotubes forming, that's just dried salt on the outside. It's pretty funny. Sometimes it will, it's like a 2D representation of how it drips down on the outside and dries, or will grow the tubes and then stick on the inside, and the material itself will break down into the straight monatomic matter at the bottom, and then eventually regrow off the anode in the reaction over about a few hours' time. So it wasn't really making sense to me how they had popped up there so quickly, but it's because they didn't. I might have a actual demonstration of what I'm talking about behind it on another jar, though. 1 second. Oh yeah, look at that, starting to get much bigger now. That's noticeably larger in size. Those
that smaller one is completely covering that gap now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, they weren't there. It bumped the jar and it was no longer plugged in. And it's like they're so delicate, they will just shatter and all fall apart instantly within the water. But when they're growing and electrically charged and plugged in, they stay in place and quite resilient.
Well, it seems like it takes like a whenever I've watched it happen, and the newborn is doing well, thank you. She's voraciously eating at this point. That the crystal lattice will set itself up, but if you don't give it time to like solidify, that's just a fake lattice, and it'll just collapse in on itself super easily if you don't give it the time to fill itself in.
That's exactly what I was trying to say earlier. When the solvent co-crystallizes with the compound, so the liquid, if you will, is actually creating a lattice as the crystal forms, and that's why you don't want to bump it or cause vibration and other points of nucleation if you want to get the largest, highest quality crystal.
Right? And this is essentially alchemy at its finest, and creating these metamaterials, or what are now known as metamaterials, and were most likely an essential part of the last high-tech civilizations of like Atlantis or Lemuria or whatnot, or so the legends go. And definitely, at least the alchemical and alchemists that have run around not ruling, but high societies of the world for the last several hundred years before our modern time. It's just fascinating, the potential both back in history as well as going forward into the future with it all. Ben, I muted, or are you there?
Yeah, my dog was drinking super loud in the background.
Farm life.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, and then earlier the peacocks were all roosting, so I had to mute because otherwise everybody has to listen to peacock scream.
I am going to definitely redo this and try to see if I can use Liminal's tech and what she came up with to modify what my current system was. And I think that if I can allow it to grow to a certain height and stop there, I can probably use the rapid crystallization method to form extremely high quality crystals in 1/10 the time that it took me last time. So just continuing to increase that number.
Right? And like that's the whole beauty of it all. This is real science, real development, and the process thereof of running the experiments, running the processes, running the alchemical process, and getting your results, and then refining it to that pure gold that you want to attain, and that once you've mastered each craft of crystallization or of electrolysis, fusion, whatever you're running, or building, making, or extracting the oils or amino acids of the essence of the plants, making medicines, all sorts of different applicable alchemical processes that we're all doing here and applying to our own lives and developments and generational technology, that as each one gets like fully developed, it's just going to exponentially accelerate all of our opportunities and creations. Like your pyramid right there, another type of essential.
I'm pulling this out as an example too, because this pyramid that we're looking at here, the angle that we're actually looking at here is based on the Great Pyramid on the Giza Plateau. And so we had, we understand that pyramids are an electrical, an acoustic, and a magnetic system. They can use all three. So what we wanted to do is basically slice the top off of this thing, and we wanted a capstone. But instead of having a metallic capstone, we wanted a crystalline capstone. And it turns out that alum, which is extremely easy to crystallize and very rapid, take a look at, so I hold these two up against each other, see if I can get my hands up the heck out of the way. So alum is going to fit perfectly as a capstone on this Giza ratio pyramid, because it happens to have almost an identical slope angle.
Look at that,
right? So that's going to be really interesting, because this we can grow to various sizes. Like we can control exactly when it gets cut off and how large you want it to be. That's going to give it its own resonant frequency, and so we can choose a frequency balance between what this likes to oscillate at and what we would want the rest of our geopolymer pyramid to be. So this you can consider like a mold. We'll grow a geopolymer, or we'll cast a geopolymer pyramid, and we will terminate it with a growing capstone of the right crystalline properties. Now, alum happens to be wonderful because you can add other materials into it. So, for example, I can add chromium, I can add aluminum, I can add bismuth if I want, and combine that with the alum crystal and then utilize each of those individual properties of those metals to change the way it responds, change its frequency, change its electrical properties, its piezoelectric properties, its thermal properties, and optimize that for energy exchange or whatever else we want to do. But it's sort of a
force multipliers.
Solution.
And that's so crazy too, that you can grow the crystal in that specific shape and have it stop at a specific point. You're saying, like,
that's exactly what I'm saying.
Like, that's so practical, and then applying and producing these metamaterials and crystals and technology going forward.
Absolutely. So I must have watered this down, otherwise that thing would be already taken up a pretty good chunk of the amount of printing on there, and it would probably be out of control. So I must have diluted it at some point and just been too tired to remember.
Right, no worries. Like, they've at least quadrupled in size since we've redone the experiment, and that this is the whole point of live real science experiments, is that as it demonstrates that the smallest of factors can change and alter the results and the process, and that you need to have the processes that don't work play out just as much as the ones that do, to be able to refine to the ultimate ended process. Like,
yeah. I do also want to mention too, with Hutchinson power cells, which is really the only reason why I started looking into Rochelle salts in the first place, and realized that I could do a whole lot more with them than what they're doing, is if we take a zoom back in time, the original Hutchinson power cells did not use Rochelle salts or these kinds of materials. They used natural minerals, found rocks that John pulled out of the garden, and then 12 years ago, post Nancy, we have this other kind of material where we're using some very, very crude mixture of non-dehydrogenized baking soda, which baking soda you can't make Rochelle salts with. You have to actually get rid of the extra hydrogen and turn it from sodium bicarbonate to sodium carbonate. And that happens by stripping the hydrogen off. And it's very, very easy to do. You got to get the water out. And you can do that just simply by putting baking soda on a baking sheet in the oven and heating it up and allowing it to sit there for, say, an hour or two. So that's the first step. And it's not mentioned in the video. You can't just put baking soda in, otherwise you'll end up with a garbage mixture. The other thing is, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio.
Gerald got out on his batches. Like, there's been a lot behind the scenes. There's been a lot of trials done, and they've not worked out properly and been failures because it's been difficult getting the exact.
Right. Well, the big video, right, that Nancy and John did together, it's an oversimplified video with an absolutely horrible formula. And that horrible formula is 1-to-1-to-1 for so many things. Like, you cannot mix these things based on volumetric ratio.
Right? Like, that's what I was thinking of this. Wait. Thank you for pointing this out. We're going to do a full follow-up video on it all to come and more organized, and the processes that we've changed in it, refined, and key failures and additions that need to be in it for an even better power cell, and that out of all of that has come what Jeremiah and Liminal have demonstrated and showing right now, and are still working on, obviously mastering the process. But it's pretty epic, those first crystals. If you don't mind showing them one more time for the audience to see what we're growing here out of the seeds, and that they're observationally easily 5-6 times larger than the first seeds when this started. Now the rate of the growth crystal, but that's nothing compared to there you go, what they're going to grow into, the ultimate goal of them.
All right, so we want high optical clarity. This does have striations because I did allow the vessel that was in to evaporate during the course of its growth. But if we take a look down because it's striated like we would find with some other nature crystals. We can see that we have very, very decent or completely usable optical clarity. And the optical clarity is important because that also means electrical response. When this crystal is oscillating, I will have a plate on these flat faces, one there, and an electrical current passing between them, alternating back and forth. And I'll change the cycle time between how long it takes to charge it up and how long it takes to discharge. But the more clear it is, the stronger that crystalline structure, the more it's going to respond piezoelectrically along its ideal crystalline lattice. And that means we can get the best properties out of it. So unlike the current Nancy and Baroness power cells that destroy themselves in a fairly short period of time because of the incorrect chemical mixture, we're going to be able to design cells that basically just don't ever deteriorate. They don't destroy themselves because they're not galvanic. They should be better than the Nancy cell, significantly. And so there they are again. Those are the two that we just grew today. And then this container that we're looking at.
Oh wow! Look at the light moving from them. Actually, oh, never mind.
What's that?
Sorry, it was because you were moving the camera that the light was diffracting. And that point being, though, these are what those little seeds in the jar that we were demonstrating growing are going to turn into and grow into. We were just expecting a bit of an accelerated growth rate in how fast it would happen compared to how you were able to get those ones done with Liminal's excellent practice in applicable science, material science. There we go.
Yeah, I will be doing. We're
all material scientists, yeah. Hands on.
I have the Rochelle mixture now optimized, and it's actually so incredibly simple to make a decent Rochelle salt mixture. And so I'll tell you and your viewers precisely what that big trick is. Okay, so when we're making a salt, alchemically, the basic process or the concept is really simple. We're taking something that has a positive charge and a material that has a negative charge. We're going to mix those two together. They're going to neutralize their charge and combine together by sharing their difference. They're generally electropositive or electronegative response. We want them to neutralize in their pH so that we end up with a balanced material. And so you have to use pH strips or basically run them until they stop reacting so that you end up with a fairly balanced material. And that's how you're going to end up creating your non-ionic salt mixtures, by balancing the two out. So this is entirely depending on the purity of the original materials that you start with. If you're using lab grade, for example, in this case with Rochelle salts, if you're using lab grade washing soda, which is your dehydrogenated baking soda, and you are also using some very, very high quality cream of tartar or sodium bititrate, then you're going to have a pretty good result. But the stuff that we get from the store doesn't have that high quality. It's got other materials in it. It could be contaminated. It's going to end up yellow. But if we balance it out until it doesn't react with itself anymore, no more fizz, no more bubbles, and we don't add any other extra material beyond that point, we're going to end up with a Rochelle crystal, which will, in fact, drop out of suspension and form really beautiful large crystals. And the extra junk liquid, which will have precipitates that we don't want in it, we can get rid of at the end of it. But it's just a matter of watching the reaction and adding it until you don't have a reaction anymore, and you can verify it with pH paper. And all salts follow the same principle. An acid and a base. That's all we're doing, is neutralizing an acid and a base with each other and receiving a salt. The entire foundation for alchemy.
Right? The
these materials.
Very basics foundation of alchemy. Perfect way to round this up. And we are almost exactly at the 2-hour mark, and this is the second stream I've done in a row, and have to get to go pick up the lovely wife and partner. Thank you all for being here, Jeremiah, Jeremy, Jeremiah Liminal, is there anything else that you would like to say before we have to go, as well as Mr. Ben Baldison, closing words? You are muted, though, good sir.
Yeah, I'll say two last things. One, I'm going to be giving a full instructional on exactly how to make these crystals properly, how to grow them rapidly and screw with them, and how to formulate them more properly on my channel on Exotic Propulsion. And in addition to that, you can look forward to some pretty fantastic, way out there stuff from both Liminal and myself going into the future as we develop this tech farther.
Do you think the acetone will clear up the impurities in the tartaric acid?
It may, but I'm not sure what else the stores add from the off-the-shelf cream of tartar.
Well, you saw what it did with the Rochelle salt, so.
Yeah, I mean, if you get pure cream of tartar and you get pure sodium carbonate, then you're going to end up with a solution that's clear. And if it's not pure, you're going to end up with a solution that looks kind of yellowish or maybe a little bit orangish or brownish. And that's why you got jug from the store. But you should be looking at both those powders, even your cream of tartar. If it looks yellow, just popping the cap off, then it's got garbage in it, probably preservatives, anti-caking agents, a variety of other things that it doesn't make it useless. It just means that you're going to have to wait for crystals to form and then get rid of the extra liquid and take those crystals out that do form and wash them off. And then you're going to dissolve those to form your proper and idealized Rochelle crystals, because you got to get rid of the anti-caking agents and other things that they like to put in there. And of course, that's exactly what kills the Hutchinson adaptation crystal battery for its new formula. That's what destroys its function, is those contaminants and the improper mixture.
Right, key to have the pure ingredients, as always. All right, sorry, gotta run. Ben, last words, my friend.
It's just an honor talking with you, gentlemen. And I'm not sure what her name is. I still haven't heard it, but excellent
Liminal.
Talking to all three. Liminal?
Yeah.
Liminal. Excellent talking to all three of you. Excellent work all around. Just awesome to watch. So appreciate it, guys. And we'll all keep hammering at it.
Sounds good. Catch you guys on the flip side.
Much love, everyone. We'll see you on the next one. Top one.